of Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
What he offers is an immediate guy that spooks the punt team. He can race. He has the speed to race for the edge. He can attack you vertically. He can beat you with speed to the edge. He's a guy that's very confident back there. Just getting to know him since he got in last week, he immediately approached me saying, I want to be the guy. I'm like, you're the guy. You're the guy. You're the guy.
Matt Daniels, man. I feel like Matt Daniels, the Vikings special teams coordinator, needs more than just his weekly little 12-minute media session. Can we get that guy a little bit more exposure? I
told you, I love this guy. He's great, man. I love him. And he actually says things. He actually tells you things. He is I think as he matures, I would not be surprised in the next 4 years or so if that guy at least gets an opportunity to start interviewing for head coaching jobs.
Yeah, he also I was looking at some other quotes from him, so that was part of it. He also referred to Jalen Reagor as a very stout, cocky-built guy, cocky-built guy,
and he was salivating.
Narrow, thick, strong legs, big glutes, really nice calves. I was salivating over this dude.
It's great.
Nice starting punt returner for the Vikings.
Football.
Man, I love how we'll get to Feedback Friday here in a little bit. This might be the most feedback we've ever gotten in a 48-hour period since a Write That Down prediction or an accountability session. And I would say it's like 80% people siding with Declan that there are a handful of starting special teams players. So I think this is ultimately headed toward Declan getting a point, going through the formality of Jalen Reagor actually getting a punt return. But somebody pointed out yesterday, I don't know if they sent it to all you guys, but they sent me a note through the SKOR North app and said, hey, here's evidence from SKOR North. If you look at this tweet that was sent out, it refers to Jalen Reagor as the starting punt returner. I was like, no, well, Declan literally runs all of social media for SKOR North. So
yeah, I did that.
Propaganda.
That part was collusion. Yes, that part was me.
The propaganda machine that is the executive producer, Declan Goff, on this show. Amazing. All right, you guys want to get into some feedback here?
Let's do it.
From the masses? You can always hit us up during the week. The SKOR North app is the best place to get our attention. It's just kind of a collection bin for all of your comments, concerns, questions, critiques. Let's start with this one. This is from probably 10 different listeners sent us some variation of, did you guys see Kurt Warner's video highlights video that was highlighting many of Kirk's checkdowns?
Yep.
So for some background here, Kurt Warner has a YouTube channel, and I don't know, he's using film in all 22 footage, so I don't know if it's like an extension of NFL Network or NFL Media, but it's Kurt Warner just breaking down film of quarterbacks. It's actually really interesting. And he posted 2 different videos. One was like a 10-minute video of all the things that Kirk does well, which I think are pretty well documented, right? He's very accurate. He can first read, clean pocket. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. There's a lot of great things he can do with placement and accuracy. But then the second video he posted was an 18-minute video that literally, it's so nuanced and excellent. It's a Hall of Fame quarterback, essentially not crapping on Kirk or hating on Kirk. It's kind of an encouragement video. It's him showing, hey, here's how you can go from being a really good, solid starting quarterback to being elite or great. And he must have shown 20 different plays. And this is kind of what we've been talking about for years on this show and on Purple Daily. You guys are negative. You're just making stuff up. It's like, well, no, Kurt Warner is literally saying all this stuff in a much more eloquent and credible way than we ever could. But the summary of the video is how often Kirk gets skittish under pressure, gets happy feet, bad mechanics, or sees ghosts, which does translate to the statistics too, which say that against pressure, he really, really struggles. And it also shows how often he bails on passes downfield for checkdowns that, hey, they show up as completions and they help your completion percentage and maybe your passer rating. But Kurt Warner showed 12 different plays where, boy, if you would have just looked here up the seam, this is actually where you're supposed to throw it. This would have been a touchdown, or this would have been a 15-yard chunk play, and instead you swung it out to the tight end or the running back. So did you guys get a chance to comb through this? And if you did or didn't, what are your thoughts on just Kurt Warner generally saying, here's how you can go from being good to great, Kirk?
It was genius. So part 1 set up Kirk for part 2. So basically, because it's what everyone who's watched Kirk for an extended period of time talks about. He can make all the throws. And that was Warner's point, is like, okay, I'm going to show you part 1 because we are talking about a gifted quarterback here. Now let's watch part 2 and see why he doesn't use said gifts. And so he went through that entire thing in part 2, and it is a lot of what we've talked about, but it went well beyond that, because we don't watch the film the same way, clearly. And so, like, when he was early in part 2, he's got a play last year, I think it was in the opener against the Bengals, and he points out what the footwork should be, what the anticipation should be, and why the check down is a waste of time, and why there are options. Now, the one thing he didn't touch on that I didn't see, and this is where we are counting on, I guess, O'Connell to get Kirk over a hump, is, so when he shows the receivers downfield, okay, a lot of times he stops it, and they are still covered. But he's like, that's the guy to throw to. And I didn't hear this explained, and to me, it's the next step. The ball needs to get out and go with an anticipatory throw.
Yeah.
In other words, you got to let go and you got to make a dangerous pass because you're trusting the receiver on the route is going to break free. And so you're literally throwing to air, but when it happens, bang, right? The receiver catches the ball. So I thought it was absolutely genius. But the one thing I would have liked to hear more about is the fact that essentially what Warner didn't touch on was Kirk doesn't trust himself enough to make the throw, because it's not, for the most part, like guys are just open. You throw them open, and that's a window. That's a split second. That's dangerous, but it's fun. So I thought it was really well done, really intriguing, and basically built on so much of the things that Kirk, that those of us who want more from Kirk have talked about for a long, long time.
Well, I have a couple more thoughts on this, because it is great, and it is. I did post on my Twitter account a link to the video we're talking about, so just go check it out at Phil Mackey on Twitter, and it's worth 18 minutes of your time. Again, it's not a trashing of Kirk. It's essentially Kurt Warner saying, dude, you're really, really good. Here's how you can become one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Eliminate these types of throws and look for he keeps talking about, you need to attack the defense and make the defense feel uncomfortable, that you are unrelenting in attacking down the field. He said, even if it means a couple extra interceptions, the amount of upside that you will tap into and the amount of fear you will instill into defenses will make up for all of it. And I was like, yes, this is what we've been talking about for years and years. In fairness to Kirk, I think sometimes when he gets skittish or happy feet in the pocket or thinks that something's going to get home quicker than it is, I think it's just a product of how bad this offensive line has been too. So in fairness, like, we can sit here and say, dude, stand in there. And Kurt Warner can sit there as a Hall of Famer and say, stand in there and throw it. And Kirk might be saying, well, I mean, it's been a few years of a bad offensive line, and it's hard for me to stand in there. Also, I wonder, Kurt Warner, again, is a Hall of Famer. The guy, and he had kind of a weird career in that he was benched for a few seasons, but like at his best, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he was relentless attacking and throwing the ball. He wasn't afraid of interceptions. And so some of the plays that he was highlighting were literally like, okay, if you freeze frame the shot here, all right, the ball is snapped, boom, we're like a second and a half into the receivers going down the field. They might look covered right here if you just freeze frame it. But if you look at the linebacker just took a step forward, or the cornerback's shoulders are turned this way, which means your wheel route in about a second is going to be wide open down the sideline. But it was like he was talking about all these anticipatory things. Right now, that doesn't look open, and so you're checking down. But if you actually look at the body language and the steps of the defensive players, this is what it's going to look like in a second or a second and a half if you just throw the ball where it should go. Mm-hmm. And I found that fascinating, because maybe there's only a small percentage of quarterbacks like Kurt Warner that actually see those anticipatory things, and maybe Kirk doesn't fall into that category as much as people want him to.
I think watching that video what was frustrating was two things, because there was a lot of things that we've kind of been validated about is that he's early to check down. I love Teddy Bridgewater, but Teddy would check down after everything wasn't working right. And sometimes to a fault, that's fine, right? Like take your safe throw and do it. But Kirk has this tendency to take the check down immediately when you have other two great wide receivers on a seam or basically ready to burst and get a big play, but you settle for the check down for completion percentage or whatever it is. I think also what was so interesting is when you do these videos, when you watch them, is it's really easy also to look at the tape and freeze frame it there and say, hey, you should have made the decision there. When in reality, you have about 3 to 4 seconds in real life to process this and make it happen. So to me, I do defend Kirk to a little bit because, all of this is happening forever. All of this is happening very quickly, I should say. So he has to take that and be better at that. I'm not trying to dissolve him of all of it, but like when I watch a hockey game in the press box with Judd, hockey looks so easy from the press box because you're so high up. The game looks so much slower. You can see everything. You can see all the openings and whatnot. But at the end of the day, Kirk is still paid to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he has to figure out as a 10-year veteran how to make those throws.
And the difference is this, though. He's being told this. He has probably been told these things with coaches' film by his coaches for years.
Oh, like
yeah. That's the frustrating thing. It's not like this is the first guy to say, "Oh my God, look at all these potential plays." So the frustrating thing, and this is where it gets to be a little bit murky when Kirk's like, "I'm just going to do what I always have done." That doesn't work. Like that's the thing. That's not going to necessarily win you a big game. And so that's where this gets intriguing. Is wow, that's some serious lightning.
Holy crap,
out there.
dude!
Did you hear that?
Was that your house, Judd?
I hope it's not on fire. But you know what? I'm going down with the ship, baby.
Dude.
I'm going down with the ship. I'm not going to leave here because I got to explain this. So, if you look at this though, like he has been told, Stella, it's okay.
Is everything,
it's
okay.
Dude?
We can stop. Is everything okay?
No, it's fine.
Is there an F5 tornado ripping through your neighborhood?
It was
right
a
now?
lightning clap outside. I didn't expect it. It's nice and cool.
Immediately
though, so
followed by
happy.
a barking dog that may have
Well,
been hit by lightning.
She didn't like the lightning. She didn't like the lightning. She's fine. You know what? We'll give her some Nutrisource treats. She'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I think that's what Kirk's been told though. Like what Warner is saying. Now, the one thing that I will say for Kurt Warner's career that's intriguing is this part. So the throws he's talking about, I think there was a time before he joined the Rams where he struggled to make those throws. But if you recall, before he became a star in the National Football League, he played Arena League football. And that's where everything happens. Bang, 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 bang. So you gotta go. Like there is no time for pack the ball. Oh my God. Oh, check down. Like you gotta go. So I think that's where he learned that. I don't know that Kirk has ever been forced into an environment where like you can tell him, hey, Kirk, you should do this. I don't know he's ever been forced though to actually process that quickly and be told, if you don't let go of the ball right now to where we think it should go, the whole play is done.
Yeah.
Because the check down, of course, is always going to be the safety blanket.
Yeah. There was also a couple plays, excuse me, that he diagrammed where, all right, there's either blitzers being sent or there's pressure coming from one side. And he's explaining very simply, hey, if the pressure's coming from here, that's where the opening's going to be for a receiver, right? So he was saying like you should be welcoming this pressure because it actually means there's wide open there's either wide open receivers, there's a free running back out of the backfield, or there's a one-on-one matchup that Justin Jefferson can take advantage of. And so there's 2 or 3 plays where pressure would come, Kurt Warner would freeze frame it and show this is 10 times out of 10 where you're supposed to throw the ball right now. And Kirk would like hesitate, or he would spin or get happy feet and throw an errant pass somewhere with pressure in his face. And I promise you, 90% of fans watching the game on TV are thinking, offensive line. What's he supposed to do, right? Oh, look at classic Garrett Bradbury. And yes, and that is a thing. But there's so many times where there is pressure, there's a receiver open, and he doesn't see it, right? So, and I think, this is when Kevin O'Connell comes into his introductory press conference 8 months back, and so one of the first things he says is, I need to get Kirk to play with a quiet mind.
Right.
It's those exact situations that he's talking about, and I'm excited to see what that looks like against the Packers this Sunday.
And where this also gets very, very tough is you said, Phil, he doesn't see it. The important thing is when it's drawn up and talked about and practiced, you're not necessarily supposed to see it. You're supposed to be confident it's there. So, like, it's not a 100%, Justin Jefferson is streaking across the field. This is great. Bang. It's, I know he's going to be there. I know where he's going to. It's why the ability to run a route completely precisely is huge.
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, I know where you're supposed to be. I'm going to get rid of the ball knowing that. It's your job to be there. So, like, there's just it was a great breakdown because I'm with you. It didn't rip Kirk, but it highlighted exactly the steps that Kevin O'Connell wants him to take.
Yep. Okay, executive coach Jason Keesow via the SKOR North app. He has chimed in before on some of the psychological things around Kirk. Jason sent me a link to his work. He does a very good job in this field. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to leadership and executive coaching. He says, I feel like you two guys are having the same conversation over and over and over and not thinking about the Spielman-Zimmer dynamic enough and the impact on Cousins. No quarterback thrives in the environment that those guys created. I see an organization that was dysfunctional. I see a leadership team that was dysfunctional. I see a quarterback that did what he could because that's all he could do. Leadership, Zimmer wasn't a partner or resource. He was a high potential employee that didn't go the extra mile because what's the point with bad leadership? I see a quarterback, a high potential employee who was ignored and misused. I think Kwesi and KOC will provide a totally different dynamic. I agree 50%, but I think you're ignoring another 50% or maybe more in that quarterbacks shape the culture historically in the NFL, maybe just as much as a lot of coaches, especially once you get into like your late 20s, early 30s. Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. Yeah. I think the version of Patrick Mahomes we're starting to see now. They're not just puppets being controlled and operated by a front office. There's a lot of dysfunction in football organizations, a lot of arguing, a lot of meatheads. I think as a quarterback, you have to have a greater influence on that culture than Kirk has had in his career. So that's my counterpoint to this.
And are you telling us, though, that every step of Kirk's career has been somehow sabotaged by culture? Like I know
a lot of people say yes.
I know Washington's not great,
which is ridiculous.
But what you're telling me then is every coach he's had and coordinator and quarterback's coach is actively not trying to help him. Like, I don't buy that. I don't. Yes, the Vikings the last 2 years, it was a mess. But that's the last 2 years. Last time I checked, Kirk is 34, I believe now. So like that's a lot to just like bank it on. And look, great thing starting Sunday. We're going to find out. We are going to find out. There is no excuse now for him not to have a great year.
Yeah.
Right now.
Rodri Jones via Twitter says, hey guys, I'm 22 years old. I'm part of your Welsh audience in the UK.
Love it.
My mom's family is from Minneapolis, and I've been a Vikings fan since I was 7 years old when I'd watched random taped games of the regular season with my grandpa when I used to go visit them in Minnesota over the summer because I'd rarely see my grandpa, couldn't watch games over here in the UK. He'd mail me newspaper clippings of what was happening, and I vividly remember following AP's record-breaking rookie season after every few months from the newspaper articles. Since then, I've been loosely following the team, but after traveling to Minnesota during Super Bowl 52, I decided to take it seriously. I immediately found your podcast at the start of the 2018 season, and it's been great to listen to you guys every day since that. Wow, this is a cool piece of feedback here. I've got tickets to the London games, Vikings Saints, and will be sporting my Till I Die merchandise. Excited to finally see my first NFL game after so many years of being a fan. Sorry for rambling on, but I just wanted to thank you guys for invigorating my love for the sport and for the team, and can't wait to see where this season takes us.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Love getting notes like that. It's pretty awesome. Viking Fan 81 on the SKOR North app says, hello, just started listening to podcasts, found your shows, and I love it. I am always believing Super Bowl every year. I respect how you guys keep it real. I do either hope or believe it will win. It will be a win against Buffalo this season. I think KOC and Donatel will plan and scheme throughout the year just because all doubt will be gone if they win. Also, never heard of Surly Beer before, but I bought the multi 12-pack, and it is very good. That game against Buffalo, I feel like we're all just kind of saying, that's all. I mean, Buffalo looked amazing last night, too.
Yeah, they looked good.
But that is going to be one of those games where you're going to know a lot more about the Vikings by then.
Yes.
You don't want to get smoked in that game. I don't think there's any way you can expect to win in that game, but you definitely want to. That is a size them up game. About 2/3 of the way through the season.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And look, the one thing about last night, and basically, in my opinion, the first month is we don't know. Like by last night, I'm sure the view was, oh my God, the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl. And they did look great, but we've been fooled before, certainly by weeks 1, 2, and 3 at the least. So I would not predict that the Vikings will win the Bills game, but can they be competitive? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's hard when you're going through a schedule and trying to predict to say, yeah, you know what? They're going to beat Buffalo. It's just difficult.
Yeah. Chandler Pressler via the SKOR North app says, interested to hear what you guys think about the level of leeway this team will have this year. On one hand, you've got a first-time head coach, an offense and defense learning new schemes, and a vast majority of starters who haven't seen a live rep since January. That's the case for most of the league. So you want to allow for some benefit of the doubt if there's some initial struggles. Yet we as fans have some potential room for angst, knowing that very few changes were made to the core of the team. Say we start 0-2. Is there a reasonable chance we hear boo birds in week 3, and would it be fair?
The only way I think that happens is if Kirk struggles badly. So, I think you would hear boo birds towards Kirk. There always are some disgruntled fans if things aren't going well, but I don't think O'Connell and the team gets booed. So if it's 2 competitive games, which it might be, I mean, they could lose both games. They're tough games. I don't think they get booed like they were last year when people were just sick of Zimmer, and essentially I think it's fair to say the entire team, right? So but if Kirk throws 4 or 5 picks in 2 games, I could see him being the one player who would get booed.
I mean, you saw that crowd against the Denver game, the classic Broncos comeback game, but they were booed off the field by halftime because this Broncos team who was crap came in and was up 21-0, 21-3, whatever it was going into halftime. They're not afraid to boo. I think there weren't any fans in 2020, but if there were fans in that Falcons game where Kirk's throwing 4 or 5 picks, oh my God, he would have been booed out of the stadium. So
you guys ever think about how weird booing is? That I'm going to voice my displeasure. I am angry and upset, and I'm going to make a weird noise, and we're all going to make the same noise to let you know, boo, we disapprove of what's happening on this athletic field.
It's whistling in some countries, right? Don't they whistle to express their dismay in Europe?
I hate whistling.
Parts of Europe?
I don't know.
Can't
Maybe
stand
is that what they do
I think
at
they
soccer
whistle.
games?
I think they whistle at soccer games, which is their way of booing.
Okay.
But yes, you're right. It is weird that they've all decided that they are going to take a stand with a certain noise. That is a good point. I've never thought about it. I sort of enjoy it when it happens, but you're right.
Yeah. I think people, first of all, people seem to love Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah.
I think just because of that, he's so likable. I would have a really hard time seeing fans turn on him in year 1 unless somehow this thing goes completely off the rails. But I think the only way it would go completely off the rails is if Cousins gets hurt or something, and now you're running Nick Mullins out there for 12 games.
Yeah.
And then if that happens, I don't think fans would be mad at O'Connell. I think they would be understanding. I think Kevin O'Connell has a free pass almost the entire season when it comes to fan angst. Not that fans won't be mad if they, I think the most disappointing result would be if they're mostly healthy and they miss the playoffs with another 7 or 8 win season. But even then, I think there's going to be some, okay, well, what's next? Okay, if that happens, it probably means that Kirk's not your guy, right? And then it'll be a forward-looking thing. So I kind of think Judd nailed it, that the guy that would get booed is the guy that makes $35 million, has the 3rd highest cap hit in the NFL, and has yet to really lead this team to anything meaningful. 1 playoff win in 4 years. To me, the heat is actually more on Cousins than O'Connell.
Yes, and I think if Kirk flops, which I don't think he's going to flop, but if he flops, I think he's still going to be tied to, okay, this was part of the previous problem. Like O'Connell's not going to be lumped in with, here we go again, it's Zimmer and Spielman again, right? Mm-hmm. So I think you're right. I think O'Connell gets a pass. I think if Kurt flops, the fans in their minds will sever Kurt from the new regime and be like, yeah, this was another guy who was a problem. Good riddance. That's my guess.
Mitchell Smith via the SKOR North app. And by the way, a reminder too, Vikings Vent Line fires back up the post-game regular season edition of Vikings Vent Line right after the Vikings-Packers game is over on Sunday. It is the most fan-friendly, interactive show in all of Minnesota sports. Hell, maybe on the planet. We basically turn the show over to you guys. We bring fans into the show with us. If they lose, it turns into a giant therapy session. If they win, it's probably an overreaction celebration. The show started off 10 plus years ago as a radio call-in show on 1500 ESPN, and the last 2 years it has morphed into a YouTube exclusive show. So you can find it exclusively, Vikings Vent Line, on the Purple Daily YouTube channel, and then on demand on the Purple Daily podcast feeds. And we couldn't be more excited for this on Sunday. Mitchell Smith via the SKOR North app says, I have a riddle for you. What would a happy Mike Zimmer be called?
I'm not good at riddles.
I don't know.
The answer is Pete Carroll.
Oh.
I could kind of see that. I think Pete Carroll has stuck around a little longer than he should because he's such a happy-go-lucky nice guy.
Yeah.
Could you envision what a happy-go-lucky version of Mike Zimmer would be like?
No, because it would run completely polar opposite to
hey, guys.
Who he is.
It's Zim.
I still don't get one. Hey, everybody. He rides down on like a clown bike. I still don't understand one of my top 3 questions in the league this year is, how do you pick Pete Carroll over Russell Wilson?
It is weird that Pete Carroll is still there. They're definitely going into a rebuild.
Yeah.
Are they strategically hoping that he just crashes the bus and it's a 2-win season? It's then weird. Why wouldn't you just start over with everything?
Right. Like, if you're going to get rid of Russ, why not just fire a P2 or keep Russ and bring in a coach that can work with Russ?
Pete's like 71, right?
Yeah. And you know what? He had far more success there than I expected. So,
yeah. And then we have one more here, non-Vikings related, but it does apply to Write That Down. I love how Write That Down has become the PGA Tour, where we just have like people watching on TV and looking for rules violations.
Calling the scores.
The Write That Down hotline.
Declan kick the prediction.
So Jeremy Lutz via Twitter says, I just listened to the Write That Down episode from Wednesday, and I would like to argue in favor of Phil being corrected on a prediction that he made. So I said Ben Johnson would get 3 top 500 recruits from Minnesota. And he's listed as having 2.
Yep.
At least, I didn't dig very deep on this. I just went to one of the recruiting sites and saw there's 2 in the top 500 from Minnesota. So Joshua Ola Joseph is from, he went to Osseo High School, and he has been a top 250 recruit the last 2 seasons.
Okay.
He went last year and played at a prep school in Arizona for his senior year. So he left Osseo High School and played at a prep school in Arizona for his senior year. And Jeremy says, I think he should be counted as a top 500 recruit from Minnesota, which would make your prediction correct. So I did some digging on this just because I wanted to know.
Okay.
So his last year at Osseo, coming out of it, he was the 208th ranked player in recruiting, which is well under the top 500 threshold. And he was obviously a Minnesota high school player. So then he goes to Arizona, and he's still like 210th or something. But he didn't finish his high school career in Minnesota. He's finishing it in Arizona. But he. So I don't know how you guys want to handle it.
I love where
this is deep technicality.
You know what? I don't care anymore. Take your point.
I feel like it's a point. I feel like it's a point, but it's in your guys' hands at this point.
So hold on a second. So he's from Minnesota. He ended up in that list, but because the list had him in Arizona because he was playing
Yes.
there.
That's why I didn't see it because I wasn't
gotcha.
So he played 3 years at Osseo.
Call Dukes next time. He'll have all the answers on that crap. For
After his third year at Osseo, he was the 208th ranked recruit in the country. Then he went to Arizona for his senior year and held at like 210th after his senior year.
I gotcha.
I would
Dex,
like the point, obviously.
Do you care? I
You
can
can have the point.
I can't this week anymore. I can't.
Thank you.
You can have the point.
Lightning is raining down on my house. My dog is pissed off.
Our pets' heads are falling off.
Punt returners are now starters. I give up.
They've always been starters.
Okay.
I think the phrase now should be atop the depth chart. That would have cleared up a lot of our problems.
Yeah, it would have, but
'Cause he's
that's
atop
the
the
game,
depth
man.
chart.
That's the Rat That
I
Down
know.
game. All right, we got to go. We'll see you over on Purple Daily. And again, don't forget about Vikings Vent Line on Sunday. This has been a Feedback Friday on Mackey and Judd.